going to call this meeting of the Plan Commission to order. Ms. Recording Secretary, can I have a roll call, please?
Mr. Ackerson, Ms. Bindum.
Here.
Mr. Fell.
Here.
Mr. Fitch.
Here.
Mr. Hopkins. Mr. Otto. Mr. Storr. Mr. Trail.
Here.
And Mr. Turner.
Here. We do have a quorum. Are there any changes to the agenda? Minutes. Would anybody like to move approval of the minutes? Moved by Ms. Bynum, second by Mr. Trail. Any changes? We're good then. We'll do it on a voice vote. All those in favor of approving the minutes say aye. Aye. Those opposed? The minutes are approved. No communications? No continued public hearings, no old business. We do have a new public hearing. Plan Case 2264 CP15. Request by the Zoning Administrator to adopt the 2015 Champaign County Natural Hazard Mitigation Plan and amend the 2005 Urbana Comprehensive Plan by adopting the Hazard Mitigation Plan as an element. Mr. Engstrom.
All right, thank you. So as you mentioned in the title, this is a request to adopt the new hazard mitigation plan and amend the comprehensive plan by adopting the hazard mitigation plan as an element. This is a 5-year update to the plan. It's actually the 2009 plan was the previous plan. Let's see. So tonight we'll talk about what we're doing. It's a request by the zoning administrator. What is a hazard mitigation plan? How does it relate to our comprehensive plan? What's some of the history of the hazard mitigation plan? And how was this iteration put together? A hazard mitigation plan is defined by FEMA as any sustained action to reduce or eliminate the long-term risk to human life and property from hazards. So this is things that we can do as a city, as a county, and things we can, policies we can institute to help individuals prepare for hazards, natural hazards and man-made hazards. This is not a disaster response plan. That's a totally separate area of planning. This is really things to prepare for hazards and make sure when they eventually occur that they don't have as bad impact as they possibly could have. So an example of a hazard mitigation strategy is requiring or prohibiting building within a floodplain. Something like that would be a quick example. And hazard mitigation plans are required to be eligible for FEMA grants for hazard mitigation actions. So that's one of the big reasons we strive to adopt these plans. So looking at our comprehensive plan of 2005, there were a few goals and objectives that are related to this item. Again, staff is proposing to adopt the 2015 plan. It will replace and supersede the 2009 hazard mitigation plan. Relevant goals include protecting our floodways and waterways, minimizing the impact of natural and man-made disasters, promoting strong construction that's resistant to ice and high winds, things like that, preparing disaster preparedness measures, things like that, providing maximum service and dependable utilities, making sure stormwater is dealt with properly, and protecting life and property from different types of damage storms or floods, etc. And the 2005 comprehensive plan had a strategy, which was to adopt a hazard mitigation plan, and that was accomplished by the city in 2005. So actually, let's talk about the history a little bit. In the year 2000, there was Congress passed the Disaster Mitigation Act that kind of set up the framework for hazard mitigation planning and grants. On June 20th, 2005, City Council adopted our city's own hazard mitigation plan to make the city eligible for mitigation grant funds. In 2007, the Illinois Emergency Management Agency awarded Champaign County a planning grant to develop a countywide hazard mitigation plan. So the county began that process in 2008, and the city participated in that process. And in 2009, the city adopted the countywide hazard mitigation plan of 2009, which superseded the 2005 plan. And in 2014, we started the process all over again. The Champaign County led a consortium of jurisdictions in updating the plan. The planning team, or the planning area, has 27 jurisdictions. There were 9 cities and entities on the planning team: Urbana, Champaign, Mahomet, Rantoul, Savoy, St. Joe, Parkland College, and University of Illinois. It was led by the Regional Planning Commission and Emergency Management Agency out of Champaign County. It was mostly police and fire representatives on the plan team. There were some planning people and public works people as well. But it's mostly driven by the police and fire departments of all the different jurisdictions. I think really the best way to go about this is just to go through the document structure and talk about what was updated from the 2009 plan. The document has, I believe, 5 chapters. The first is an introduction, just describes the planning process, the jurisdictions, the planning team, so the things I've just spoke about. It gives a background on the 2009 plan as well as the 2015 process. The next chapter deals with the plan area and community capabilities. So there's a lot of background demographic information, things like land use, account of structures, both overall within the county and within the floodplain. An inventory of critical facilities, so things like fire stations, power stations, water plants, and then a quick review of related plans and reports, and adopted policies and programs. So that section really was just updated with new census information from 2010. I think actually some of the structures inventories came from a 2009 survey. Critical facilities were just a survey that they conducted very recently. The next section talks about hazard identification and risk assessments. So in the 2009 county hazard mitigation plan, we looked at natural hazards, severe storms, tornadoes, severe winter storms, floods, extreme heat, drought, and earthquake. 2015 plan, we also started looking at technical hazards, and those include hazardous materials, transport, and storage. A parallel effort with the hazard mitigation plan was a hazardous materials transport study that the RPC conducted. So we were able to use a lot of their data to find out about hazardous materials in the county. And the latest section to be added was on an active shooter scenario. That's mostly how the police would deal with something like that. And they mostly looked at that on looking at campus buildings. So the next section talks about the mitigation strategy. This section kind of has the overall goals of the plan. There are 4 main goals in the plan. They're basically the same as the 2009 plan, but there was a bit of verbiage added to kind of clarify the intent. So the main goals are minimizing avoidable injuries and death due to natural hazards, including adverse effects associated with climate change and technical hazards. I put that last clause of including climate change and technical hazards in italics because that's new. The direction from FEMA was to update plans to incorporate change or effects of climate change. So we've done that. The technical hazards was an optional component again. The second goal, reduce or eliminate potential losses by encouraging local policies that break the cycle of damage, reconstruction, and repeated damage of infrastructure once damaged or destroyed from impacts of natural or technical hazards. So again, that's, well, basically this goal is saying we should adopt strong codes, make sure our buildings are resistant to wind and ice, things like that. Improve the capability of participant populations to rapidly recover from disruption caused by natural hazards, adverse impacts associated with climate change and technical hazards. So making sure there's plans to plow the roads after ice storms, things like that. And then finally, encourage interagency cooperation to foster community and regional resiliency with regard to planning to mitigate potential adverse impacts of natural hazards, impacts associated with climate change, and technical hazards. So it's just working together with all the agencies, making sure we have redundancies and we're able to back each other up. For example, the tornado had hit Gifford in Champaign County. We sent up several people from the fire department to help out with that. So those kinds of things. There's a section on compliance with the National Flood Insurance Program. The city is compliant with that. So our residents have that benefit. And then there's a long table that has individual jurisdiction actions. So these are all actions that have each jurisdiction has agreed to pursue over the next 5 years. And there are several for Urbana. Let's see, 23 current actions for Urbana. We won't go through them all, but I'll talk about the 4 that have changed. And then the final chapter talks about plan use and maintenance. The hazard mitigation plan is updated every 5 years, but we've set a schedule to meet once every year as a planning team to make sure that we're making progress on our items, and if there's any changes we need to make, we can run it through the planning team and submit a supplementary report to FEMA to be approved. So from Urbana's actions, we completed 3 and we added 4, and I think 3 of those are related. So one of the actions is provide backup maintenance of stormwater detention basins to include properties served by detention basins in the event that the property owner association fails to maintain it. So this is saying if there's a condo association or another legal entity that is responsible for an outlot that has stormwater detention on it. We want to make sure that if that association folds, that maintenance will be passed on to the constituent members. So we've got that encoded in our city codes now, and we just have a new mitigation action to continue implementation. Another item: amend the city of Urbana floodplain management regulations to require buildings to be 1 foot above the 100-year floodplain. That has been adopted. So we're just going to continue maintaining that. And the final item that was removed: update FEMA flood insurance rate maps based on the study of the floodway done a few years ago, and for the Boneyard Creek. So those maps have been updated on the city website. They've been adopted by the city officially, and we've accomplished that action. So the additional items, just maintaining that requirement for developers to have a tax benefit district in the case of a failure of a condo association. That's ongoing. Continuing to require buildings to be over the floodplain by 1 foot. Participating in the National Flood Insurance Program. We decided to make that an action item. Most of our action items are ongoing things, just making sure they stay in the codes and we enforce them. And then participating in the National Weather Service Storm Ready program is another added item Public Works is doing. Those are really the main changes from the 2009 plan to the 2015 plan. There's a couple updates sprinkled throughout the plan, just updates of the number of structures in Urbana, the number of critical facilities in Urbana, the ISO ratings for fire protection districts and fire departments, making sure all of our plans, programs, and policies were updated. I think there might have been a building code update, so that's now reflected in the plan. And Appendix D was updated to show the new flood maps from FEMA. And with that, Plan Commission has a few options in this case. Approve the hazard mitigation plan and adopt it as an element of the comprehensive plan, or approve it with specific changes and adopt it as an element of the comprehensive plan, or do not approve the Champaign County hazard mitigation plan update. Staff's recommendation is to approve the proposed plan updates and adopt the plan as an element of the comprehensive plan. And we have Division Chief Hench from the fire department. If you have any questions for me or him, I'd be glad to answer them.
Thank you, Mr. Engstrom. Do we have any questions for Mr. Engstrom? Mr. Trail?
We just adopted it, I want to say 2013. Probably 2010-ish, 2011.
We have enough confidence in it. It's going to remain the same given the way the climate's going, but 1 foot is sufficient.
We do for the next 5 years at least, until we revisit this plan.
Of course, once structures are constructed within that 5 years, kind of tough to get them to unconstruct them if you want to do that.
Yep. One thing about the FEMA maps are they are a little conservative. They're not based on the best data. I think it's a 2-foot contour. So I feel pretty confident those maps include more area than needs to be. But to your point about only raising 1 foot, we can debate how much rains will increase by due to climate change, but
Another discovery that their flood maps are fairly worthless. After having 2 or 3 500 flood events in the last 10 years. So I'm just 1 foot in the current climate seems kind of, we're just gonna rubber stamp the map.
That's
Did anybody do anything about looking at, for instance, heat events? How many people are likely to need cooling services, et cetera? Is it for poverty or
I think
electrical failures or?
they did run some projections on those, I believe. I'm trying to remember. It's been a while since we had those updates with the planning team, but they did modeling for different types of events. I know they had very specific modeling for flood events and earthquake events. I think they probably had more rough estimates for heat events, but there were estimates at least.
Any further questions for Mr. Engstrom? The only thing I had, thanks for all your work on this. I think it's a pretty impressive document. Thank you, sir. I got off on reading the estimates that you were talking about and the floodplain stuff and how much property will be damaged, different scenarios. And in wandering through the document, I found 2 typos on page D28. Only reason I bring those up is because they specifically mention the city of Urbana when they should, in the headings, when in fact they should say, I believe, the unincorporated county.
Okay, D28?
At least in the electronic version online.
Okay.
Appendix D. You see the headings there?
Yep. 28. Is that, well?
I can show you
Nope,
after.
Yeah, I believe this is specific to Urbana. So there's,
There's an Urbana section, and then there's the unincorporated county section.
oh, okay. I see. Yes, you're correct.
Eagle eye.
Got it.
That's all I really had. To Mr. Trail's point, I mean, any further questions along those lines? No? All right. Thank you, Mr. Engstrom.
Thank you.
All right. Any discussion? Thoughts? Actions? We better limit ourselves to thoughts.
I'll give a thought to
Mr. Fell?
at least my opinion on the 100-year flood. The FEMA map's not very accurate, but if we raise it more than a foot right now above the map, we're going to have 3/4 of Urbana in that flood, 100-year flood, and every building permit's going to need a creekway permit if you're in the floodway. It would be a administrative nightmare.
And I appreciate that. But the thing is, the reality is, we're whistling in the wind a little bit here. We've been very lucky in this area. I mean, we haven't really suffered some of the effects that lots of other areas in the world are suffering. Maybe they're a lot more run out. So, I mean, I understand it upsets the apple cart.
Yeah.
But on the other hand, I personally, my thing is these sorts of plans have to be realistic, even if you say, well, we just can't do it. But you know, you gotta look at it. It seems like it's not much of a real play. If you're not really putting down what you really think, what the data really says about things. That's, and they sort of, you know, we put in the preamble and stuff, you know, climate change. Lots of people in the same boat. Like, you know, you get the places on the East Coast that are saying, well, you can't say that sea level's gonna rise because too much property value would be destroyed. But, the sea will still rise. And there's, the longer you put it off, I'm not saying that there's anything really great we can do right now, but the longer you put off actually raising it as an issue, thinking about it, the less time you have to do anything real, especially for things where it's going to take a long time to do anything.
Anything further? Do we want to move it? Somebody want to make a motion of some sort? Ms. Bynum moves to approve Plan Case 2264 CP15 and adopt as an element of the strategic plan. Is there a second? Mr. Turner, seconds. We'll do a roll call vote when you get a chance.
Ms. Bynum? Mr. Fell?
Yes.
Mr. Fitch?
Yes.
Mr. Trail?
No.
And Mr. Turner?
Yes.
That motion passes. And I guess the city council will hear it in a couple of weeks,
Yes, sir. September 21st.
September 21st. All right. We don't have any new business. We don't have any audience participation. Do we have a staff report? No staff report. No study session. Therefore, we are adjourned.